for our viewers here in the United States.
Welcome to this GPS special report. I'm Fareed Zakaria. 2014 will be a year of surprises, events that no one can predict. But there will be one great spectacle in the spring, an event that never fails to move me deeply. India will hold its national elections, the largest democratic process in human history. More than 700 million people at 800,000 voting booths using 1.3 million machines will cast their ballots. Aside from the extraordinary affirmation of democracy, this election is turning into a pivotal contest. A clash between a rising controversial figure and the scion of an old dynasty. The issues at stake are crucial, not just for India, but the entire world. Will India push forward to become the next China, the next big global growth engine? Or will it relapse into its old, confused ways? India has been growing impressively for 15 years. It's a different place from the stagnant country I grew up in the 1970s. But the numbers don't look so good anymore. Democracy has led to deadlock, delay, and dysfunction. Were a billion dreams misplaced? Can India right itself? Will a democracy make the hard choices? This hour, 1/6 of humanity at a crossroads. Why it matters for America and the world. We'll show you what some have called the country's Arab Spring, a grassroots movement against corruption. We'll visit an Indian state that is growing faster than China.
Yes, we can!
The man who runs that state is gunning for a bigger job, Prime Minister.
Clown banna serious kaam hai.
Then to Bollywood, where you'll meet India's Tom Cruise. But this guy is now using his celebrity to solve India's toughest problems. First, you think Washington is gridlocked? You haven't seen New Delhi. Let's get started.
India is a country that lives in several centuries simultaneously.
India, as Bollywood star Shabana Azmi points out, is a country of profound contradictions.
In India's people at any given time and place encapsulate all the contradictions that come from being a multi-religious, multi-class, multilingual, multicultural society.
So with all those contradictions, how on earth is the country moving forward? When foreigners come to India, they see the visible manifestations of the state, the infrastructure and such, as being terrible. Yeah. And yet, the economy, by and large, continues to do well. How does that happen?
Well, India grows at night when the government sleeps. Liberty, equality.
Gurcharan Das, a renowned author and the former CEO of Procter & Gamble India, says that India has grown despite its broken government. Broken because if you think that the United States Congress is chaotic and dysfunctional, take a look at India's parliament.
The government is not obliged to implement a law passed by parliament, which sounds ridiculous.
There was one expectation 10 years ago.
Jay Panda is a member of the lower house of parliament. Panda maintains that democracy has been good for India, but says there have been too many log jams in recent years.
In the US, the Congress and Senate have rules for how you set agendas. Now, our rules go back to before independence, and there are no rules. It just says that the agenda is set by consensus.
If you think consensus is hard to reach in America with two political parties, imagine how elusive it can be in India's lower house of parliament, which has 37 parties.
It is the bounden duty of government to maintain peace.
In 2011, Parliament was adjourned 102 times.
Please sit down.
and it was only in session for about 15 weeks out of the year. Odisha has a long way to go, but what was once considered a basket case of India has grown on average about 8% every year for a decade. And it's not just Odisha. Isn't it extraordinary, with all the problems, the bureaucracy, the bad politics, if you take average growth over the last 10 years, it's 7%.
Yeah.
So does that mean that if a few of these things were fixed, it could be 10%?
Yeah.
Is it the price of democracy?
Well, yes, to some extent it is a price of democracy. But democracies have reformed, have fixed. Look at Chicago today. Look at England. England in the early 19th century was a corrupt society. You could buy any job in the government, but then they did the hard work of politics.
Montek Singh Ahluwalia, one of the most powerful people in India's government, thinks India can reform and even become the next China.
I feel that we're just behind China by 10 to 15 years. And we're a democracy, and there's rule of law, and the courts are independent. Of course, we have to do a lot to improve it further. But the fundamentals are very sound, in my view.
If the economic fundamentals are sound, India's politics does need work. Up next, one major hurdle in India's path, corruption. But there's good news there as well. India might just have a homegrown solution. Regardless of how dysfunctional American politics might be, it would be hard to imagine 30% of America's legislators with criminal charges pending against them. That was precisely true for India's lower house of parliament following India's last elections in 2009. Charges ranged from rape and murder to corruption. But something here is changing. The usually apathetic Indian middle class is making demands of its government. And from this anger, a movement has emerged. Call it the Indian Spring.
The problem that hits 99% of Indians is every day. I go for a birth certificate and I'm asked for a bribe. I go for a completion certificate for my house. I'm asked for a bribe.
Gurcharan Das, the former CEO of Procter & Gamble in India, argues that corruption is endemic across the country, even in small, everyday transactions.
When I die, my children will have to bribe somebody to get a death certificate. Now that birth to death corruption is the bane of the problem.
हम नहीं कुछ करेंगे तो वो दूसरी पार्टियों में जाएंगे.
Arvind Kejriwal goes a step further. He says living honestly is just not possible in India. Kejriwal is a trained engineer who once worked in India's version of the IRS. He was so outraged by what he saw in government, he became an anti-corruption activist.
The people of India are the best people in the world, with the worst governance.
Kejriwal's inspiration is a frail 74-year-old man named Anna Hazare, the face of India's anti-corruption movement. In August 2011, thousands rallied around Hazare when, inspired by none other than Mahatma Gandhi, he went on a hunger strike to end corruption.
It was being led by a person who was a saint. No one could raise a finger at him. Anna Hazare lives in a temple. He brought the spirituality to the entire movement.
Hazare's 12-day fast ended with a success of sorts. Hazare's 12-day fast ended with a success of sorts. Parliament agreed to consider a bill for a strong, independent anti-corruption agency. Do you think you were successful in getting the government to respond and adjust?
The people wanted a strong anti-corruption law. The government did not do that. Most of the people sitting in the government, most of the ministers have directly indulged in corruption.
And since Kejriwal couldn't get politicians to listen to him, he became one of them. If you can't beat them, join them, right? He formed the Aam Aadmi Party, the party of the common man. And that common touch has found quite some success. In December, Kejriwal's party won 28 of the 70 seats in the New Delhi State Assembly. But not everyone thinks Kejriwal is the new kind of leader India needs.
Kejriwal is a populist demagogue. He's illiberal. He's a socialist. And he's out of sync. People still think of the Constitution as something that came from above.
Gurcharan Das met Kejriwal while he was writing his latest book, India Grows at Night. Das says Kejriwal has his sights set on the wrong target. What Kejriwal rails against is the type of crony capitalism that in one case alone cost India as much as $40 billion, when high officials were alleged to have sold off big portions of India's mobile airwaves.
But that's a problem which really hits about 1% of Indians. Instead of worrying about this corruption
at the highest
level, worry about the corruption in your neighborhood.
One of the men at the highest levels of Indian government, Montek Singh Ahluwalia, agrees that corruption is a daily phenomenon. But he says the government is responding. Lots of people look at India and say the corruption is terrible at every level. What would you say to them?
The notion that India is the only emerging market that is corrupt is complete nonsense. What is true is that worry about corruption, and indeed the politicization of corruption in India, is immense. To my mind, that's actually to the credit of India.
Meaning?
Meaning that government recognizes, and we've said this at the highest level, government recognizes, A, that this is a concern, and B, that it's a legitimate concern.
The government has adopted a few transparency measures, and that anti-corruption bill that New Delhi introduced following Hazare's hunger strikes, it just passed more than 2 years later. In the end, Montek Singh Ahluwalia and Arvind Kejriwal do agree on one thing. You think that the India that your son will live in is going to be less corrupt, richer, with a government that is more responsive than the one we currently have?
Absolutely.
5 years from now, will India be less corrupt than it is today?
Of course, India would be less corrupt, there will be less illiteracy, there will be less poverty. I am very upbeat about the future of this country.
You are, even though you say there are so many things wrong with it.
That is because the hope is from the people of this country. The people are coming together. The people are protesting. Now they're not sitting back. They're not cynics anymore.
Ironically, some people allege that Kejriwal's anti-corruption party has been corrupted itself. It's a charge he denies vigorously. But his anti-corruption platform is increasingly being adopted, at least rhetorically, by other opposition parties, who all believe that the upcoming national elections will be a protest against corruption and graft for the first time ever. It's a sign that voters are maturing and demanding better government. Up next, can India grow like China? Well, there is one part of India that seems to out-China the Chinese. And the guy who helped them do that wants to go national.
I'm Kate Baldwin.
And this
is CNN.
When we think of China, we imagine an authoritarian land where things work, a place where freedom is sacrificed, but in return you get strong economic growth. When we think of India, we think of a messy democracy, of organized chaos, a place where growth is sacrificed for freedom. Now imagine a place in India where both are true, where there is democracy, but also strong economic growth. Well, the top official of this state might well be leading India after the 2014 national elections.
If you look at the growth in Gujarat, right, it has been better than China, if you think about Gujarat as a country.
Mukesh Ambani is not only the richest man from the state of Gujarat, he is also the richest man in India.
What Gujarat has demonstrated is that over decades you can attract investment, and with sensible governance you can really improve.
You may think that sensible governance is lacking in America, but India has a way of making us look like a model of efficiency. Just listen to Ratan Tata. In 2008, when he was still running India's largest conglomerate,
this has been referred to as one man's dream.
Tata unveiled the world's cheapest car. Initially, Tata built the factory for the $2,500 Nano in West Bengal, then a communist-governed state. When the plant was 80% complete, a local politician accused the Tata Group of usurping farmers' land, a false allegation, Tata says.
Our walls got breached, materials got stolen. How could we run a plant in such a hostile environment?
So Tata decided to move the nano operation to Gujarat, where the top official in the state, Chief Minister Narendra Modi, now a candidate for Prime Minister, provided a business-friendly home instantly.
In effect, he delivered in 3 days what other states, which were also trying to woo us, could only offer their best endeavors to do. Clean, no side deals, no quid pro quos.
No bribes.
None whatsoever.
First-generation entrepreneur Jayesh Desai embodies the possibilities of Gujarat. He was born in a small village where his father was a grain merchant.
One day my father told me, now you have to do something. You have to go big city.
Armed with the ambition to help his family overcome what he calls their help
to go big city.
Armed with the ambition to help his family overcome what he calls their helpless financial condition, Desai drove a scooter to school.
I ride very rough scooter, very old scooter.
Now in the big city, the second largest in Gujarat, he drives a Ferrari. And not just any Ferrari, one that used to belong to the Formula One racing legend, Michael Schumacher. Desai proudly drives it around Surat, the city where he co-founded the Rajhans Group, a textile, entertainment, and real estate company. His dream is for each of his employees to drive a Mercedes, a BMW, or an Audi.
Surat has a lot of billionaire and millionaire, very hard work people here.
He chose Surat because it's one of the fastest growing cities in the world. The city produces 40% of India's textiles, and 8 out of every 10 diamonds in the world are cut or polished here. Municipal Commissioner M.K. Das runs Surat.
The per capita income is one of the highest in the country. There's a different vibrancy here.
There's even an Empire State Building and a World Trade Center. Every 10 years, the city of 4.5 million adds 2 million new people.
And that is continuing even today because of almost zero unemployment rate, good infrastructure, nice weather, availability of water, sewage, everything.
But not everyone has been a part of the growth. Imam Amin Khan lives in the Muslim slum in Surat.
If you go out, you'll see #1 facilities for everything. But if you visit our slums, all you'll find is waste and drains. Modi is working, but he's getting rid of us poor and building palaces, building bridges.
He's talking about Gujarat's controversial elected and popular Chief Minister, Narendra Modi.
On the one hand, industrialists see him as a superb administrator who's delivered for 9 or 10 years very high levels of growth. Why can't you say that you regret the killings that happened? Why can't you say...
On the other hand, journalist Karan Thapar, who has interviewed Modi, says that the Chief Minister is reviled for failing to stop the 2002 riots, a massacre in which upwards of 1,000 people, mostly Muslims, were killed.
Modi is also perceived as a villain, as a man who presided over the killings of 1,000, 1,200 Muslims by either deliberately failing to stop the rioters. By some accounts, he actually gave instructions to the police to permit the rioting so that the anger could be quelled after a certain amount of blood had been shed.
Modi straddles these two realities. The United States has denied him a visa to visit, citing his complicity in the riots. Modi denies any wrongdoing. And he is the leading opposition candidate for Prime Minister in the 2014 national elections.
Yes, we can.
Has Gujarat got it right? And can its project go national? Indians head to the polls in 2014. They're angry with the ruling Congress party for its mismanagement of the economy. And Modi has been dynamic and effective on the campaign trail. If he and his allies gain a majority, Narendra Modi will be India's next prime minister. A prospect that delights many but scares many others. Up next,